What y'all listening to?
Limelight Highlight Podcast.
And welcome back to the show, your positive podcast and safe space and great place for a positive outlook on life. Another week down and hopefully another week closer to freedom that we're all so desiring to get to. I know last week I said I had some pretty exciting news to share, and last week's Limelight PPDPT was all about the animal pad. My wife has been working with the animal pad these last 2 weeks trying to get us a dog to adopt and add to our family, and we finally started fostering last week. And this week we're going through the process to adopt. So the big news that I was talking about last week is we have another four-legged baby joining our family. The next hurdle is to get her and my two cats to get along, so that I'm sure will be a challenge that we're still trying to work on with, and I'll keep you posted about how that goes. If you wanted to know, she is a 5-month. They told us she was a pit lab mix, so we'll see how that goes. What else we got? Another update. We've partnered with Audiograph to be able to engage more with some of the listeners of this podcast, and it'll help you interact better with the show and see the links in the show notes more easily and navigate those things so you can get all up to date. And it's all around a bunch of new and exciting things that are happening. I'll be sure to add those links in the show notes, and I'll keep you posted on all the changes as they come. Now, before we get into the show today, I want to just take a minute to vent about something that I think is really frustrating. Every week I research for good news stories and positive news, and it kind of pisses me off that positive news that comes up as far as, mainstream media outlets, it has to do with like celebrities giving signed plaques to workers to thank them with, little autographs, or how some celebrities are taking lovely pictures amid the pandemic and just saying like, we're in this together. Like I'm not trying to bash them or anything like that. The point I'm trying to get across is that there's such a scarce platform or outlet out there that focuses on actual positive news that is helping people, that a celebrity or somebody who has a lot of money are doing things to say thank you, but that's not really coming up with an aid or a solution that's helping make people's lives better while this pandemic is going on. And it bothers me that passes as good uplifting news. What they're going through, like, it's just such a huge disconnect as to the regular citizen of everyday life and everyday struggle. It really bothers me. There's people struggling with getting their bills paid or knowing where their next meal is going to come from, and the mainstream positive news quotes stories are about people with abundances of money using it to say thank you or to live normal lives while everyone else is working to make sure they're healthy as well as make a living. So that's another reason why I really try my best to provide a positive platform for stories that I see from sites like the Good News Network or Sunny Skies or Positive That News and Good Black News. These platforms seem to be constant sources for my positive news that I constantly report on, and we really need to make them more common and well known, as well as promote the fact that we need good news stories out there. So that's why I'm here, or that's why I try to do this, in case you needed me to remind you. And so as per our usual program, we got some positive stories for you and your listening pleasure. We'll be covering a story about a very wealthy donor and the specifics on where the donated money is going. We got an interesting concept that Lithuania is implementing to help safely reopen some cafes that they have. And we'll finish off with some more positive and shocking climate news to finish out our story. Our Limelight PPDPT segment has to do with feeding people in war-torn places. So pretty fun pack-filled show today. Disclaimer, for today's unrelated fun fact, it's about spiders and creepy crawly. So if you get creeped out, fast forward. If not, I think you'll enjoy this one. This unrelated fun fact is going to be a bonus because there's some extra info for you instead of, the one fact that I usually give. So it's about spiders. And when spiders mate, they actually don't have penises. The male spider, they mainly put their sperm on a web or a false leg and deposit it into the female reproductive system, and that's how that works. But the harvestmen, or daddy long legs as we like to call them, actually have penises, and because of that, they aren't technically spiders. They're arachnids. Well, arachnids are spiders, but they're not the same. They are in that kind of genre. And they're actually more closely related to scorpions than they are to spiders, which is pretty interesting. Spiders usually have two distinct body segments, like their big butt. But the daddy long legs actually he has an oval shape and a compact body. And a bonus fact, growing up, I always remember hearing people say how daddy long legs are super poisonous, but their mouths are too small to really pierce our skin. Well, Mythbusters actually had an episode that found that daddy long legs don't usually bite people, but they can be provoked to bite, and their bite is no more poisonous than a regular spider bite. So with how the weather is warming up and how common daddy long legs are in a lot of areas, I figured it'd be an interesting conversation to have with in the very possible case you come across one and want to educate a friend or a family member. That's some interesting stuff there. So there you have it, another fun fact to add to your arsenal. And with that, let's get on with the show. So today's news is going to be more coronavirus related coming your way, but this time it's a little bit different. As many of you know, hospitals and the U.S.'s overall budget for this crisis has taken a tremendous hit. We were absolutely not prepared for this pandemic, and as we've gone over again and again, people have been laid off and hospitals running out of supplies and money. And in the past, I've reported on donations of food and supplies to help these essential workers carry out the heavy and stressful task of keeping people alive, safe, and healthy. There's been a trend of people going out, not, even before the virus and everything, but a trend of people going out to help those in need and carrying a camera to show that they're doing this good deed. And while I love that people are out there trying to help others, I find myself a little bit conflicted with the fact that some of these people, or a lot of these people, are doing this for clout. They're just, look at me, I'm doing something for, I need recognition. But luckily there are people out there who really want to help do this without the need for recognition. And that brings us to our first story. It's about an anonymous donor who gifted $1 million to the Dignity Health Dominican Hospital in Santa Cruz, California. And instead of using that money to get more supplies like many places who get donations do, the donor insisted that that all of the money donated should go to all of the staff, including the cleaners. The donor, I don't know if it's he or she, so the donor actually left a note that said, I quote, "Thank you for standing up and staying up to care for our community. This human kindness is what makes you heroic," end quote. Now, the hospital is using the donation to give bonus checks to nurses, cleaning staff, lab techs, medical record staff, post-room workers, and security guards, as long as the people who are receiving these checks have worked or, have been employed at the hospital for at least 1 year. And full-time staff gets $800 bonus, and the part-timers will receive $600. Now, there are so many people that work in so many different areas to keep these hospitals running. The fact that this donor requested to remain anonymous goes to show that this is a fully kind-hearted gesture. There is no clout chasing or recognition that was required for them to give such a generous donation, and because of that, it just speaks volumes as to what it means to have money and actually do something good with it. I know I've said this before, and as nice as the gesture is from many of the celebrities and entrepreneurs are, with the thank yous, they don't really help people. Thank yous don't pay the bills or help the frontline workers who risk their lives every day to help save others. Thank yous are, I'm sure, appreciated, but when you have an abundance of money, there should be a responsibility to take those who have less, and give back. And obviously that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but man, the amount of differences that this one person has made in so many lives in this one hospital is something that should be celebrated and highlighted big time. So shout out to him or her, that anonymous donor. That's just huge. Now for our next story, we're going to travel across the sea to Europe and talk about our brothers and sisters in Lithuania. Lithuania, if you didn't know, it used to be attached to Russia. It is it's a little country or an independent state, and it's famous for the amber found on the shores of the Baltic Sea, and is the only country in the world with its own official scent called the scent of Lithuania. So it's pretty easy to remember, but it's actually most famous for its national dish, cepeline. I hope I said that right. I'm probably butchering this, but it's a potato dumpling stuffed with meat, curd cheese, or mushrooms, and it's supposed to be really good. Never had it before, but while reading this, I can see why what we're about to get into is so prominent. With that being said, their famous dish, Lithuania also has a vibrant cafe and restaurant culture. So almost like Italy, everybody likes to drink wine and, have good food and interact and be social and stuff. So on a previous episode of the podcast, I know we did an entire news show about restaurants and the unique ways that they're coming up with to adapt and stay in business during the pandemic. Well, since the pandemic, Lithuania has designated all public spaces as open air cafes, which allows the restaurants to stay open to serve customers while still maintaining those social distance guidelines. Around 160 restaurant, cafe, and bar owners have actually signed up for the program that has opened about 18 spacious public areas for outdoor seating, promising to add more spaces to the list as the summer progresses and the quarantine directives change. But because of these restaurant owners, baristas, and bar owners, they're able to place their tables as far, because of this, they're able to place those tables as far as they need to accommodate their customers, and nearby cafes will be allowed to set up outdoor tables free of charge during the quarantine. Along with these amazing accommodations, they've implemented public health workers. They were recently rewarded with food and drink vouchers for the city's restaurants as a gesture of gratitude for their hard work and public service. There you go. Another beautiful example of how others are truly taking care of each other and really showing their gratitude by giving them something that they can use instead of a regular old thank you. I thought this story was really interesting because it covers a few key items. One, it shows how businesses are able to thrive by making accommodations to those businesses, and actually the city, making accommodations for those businesses and helping keep them thriving while they're serving their citizens. Two, it's showing that they are serious about keeping the social distancing standards in effect while safely still trying to live their normal lives. And, the old saying, solutions come from desperation or something like that. You get what I'm trying to say. And three, not only are they able to keep these businesses going, but they're able to provide meals and drinks to the true heroes as a special thank you that I'm sure is seriously needed and appreciated, especially for those who are living in this area. And finally, the Lithuanian Association of Hotels and Restaurants they seem to be really happy that these things are in effect because the accommodations are able to help more visitors come, bring in more business and some normalcy back to the city streets while still maintaining a safe distance. So yeah, that was that Lithuania story. It's pretty interesting. Now our last story is going to be somewhat brief due to the mass amount of times I've covered climate change and how much damage we're doing to our world. So the positive news story that we're going to be sharing today is similar to those within the last few weeks, helping pollution being decreased and all that. The difference here is that this time we're breaking records. Since the pandemic, one of the biggest shocks has been to the global economy in more than 7 decades. And if you've been paying attention to the price of oil, it's dramatically dropped and decreased. And the U.S. has such an abundance of it that we're somewhat losing money. At least that's the hearsay. And since travel has been restricted and the lockdown is in effect, we're headed towards a record-breaking 8% annual decline in carbon emissions, which happens to be the largest decrease in history and a huge win and break for the world to breathe. Now, there's been such a slump in electricity use that the only thing holding up is renewable energy in the economic sense. There is a projection that energy demand will fall 6% in 2020, which is 7 times the decline after the 2000